if you're thinking more work equals quicker results, then you've got it all wrong. When we look at allocating the right amount of volume per week towards your training, there comes 4 factors that we have to take into consideration, and then how we adjust that. So those 4 factors are days per week you can train, your experience, your intensity inside the gym, and progressing. Your definition of progression being like real data or thinking work equals result. And then how to adjust that through objective data. So let's talk about days per week you can train. To preface the idea of how many days per week you can train, I don't care how many years you've been training or if you're brand new to training. These are rules that I'd follow, just predominantly so that we know that we're hitting all muscles with the same intensity from the first session to the last session to the first exercise to the last exercise. That's if you get one thing from this is that your first exercise and your last exercise has the same amount of intensity, and your first session of the week to your last session of the week is the same intensity, and your first time in this block to the 3/4 throughout the block, that intensity needs to be the same and or better. If you're finding that you're not progressing, or that your intensity throughout the sessions or throughout each set or throughout each week is wavering, or you're feeling like you require more discipline to show up more, then you've probably allocated too much volume. And this is where it's important to understand that more work doesn't equal result. It's understanding that the more intensity equals result. And if you're not facilitating intensity, if you're not facilitating a great intent throughout every session, then I would reduce volume, really focus on progressing in the movements that you currently got in your program before you add further exercises. So days per week you train. So way I look at it, if you can see, I would say 1, 2, 3 days a week, I would do full body. These are full body sessions. Once again, I don't care how many years you've been training for. I think this is just going to get you the most bang for your buck. Those who train maybe 3 times a week, it's not as if you're not prioritizing the gym, but I feel like right now you may or may not have time to show up. And that's totally fine. And so with that variable and the years I've been coaching for, is that if you were to miss a session, it wouldn't be a big deal. Like let's consider you do 3 times a week and you do a push-pull legs. Surprise, surprise, you haven't been able to hit legs in the past 3 weeks. But if you did full body sessions and for the past 3 weeks you haven't been able to hit the 3rd day, then that's fine because we've been doing full body, right? So that's the way I would break that down. If you were to do 4 times a week, I would do an upper lower, upper lower, upper lower. Once again, I think that those who train 4 times a week consistently tend to prioritize going to the gym, and therefore they won't miss out on a session. And you can see here that I've gone an upper. So potentially the way I look at training for most of my clients, if they're doing 4 times a week, I usually allocate like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Monday being they start their upper day, because if we start the first day of the week as legs, they're probably not going to be training as intense. And even if it's not like a mind thing, it might be a body thing. So I want their body to have a higher arousal state. And starting on Monday with the legs, they might not be able to accrue that like nervous system requirements. And then the Tuesday we'll do legs, and then we've got a break in the middle of the week, and then we do upper again, and then on Friday they would do legs. Once again, like you don't need to do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. It's just an easy structured way of going, cool, this is my week, this is how I'm going to structure it, and this is my like proactive rest days. What you do on those rest days is up to you, but as long as you're not inside the gym. And so I love this split for 4 days a week, predominantly because this lower day could be like a hamstring focused day, just because you won't be as fatigued. Once again, hamstring focus, there still can be quads in there, but I would probably allocate like low fatiguing exercise, potentially like a split squat, leg extension, leg press kind of movements. And then Friday could be like a quad focused day, in which, once again, focus, there could be hamstrings involved in there. But this could be like squats, it could be RDLs, movements that accrue a lot of fatigue, but we have 2 days of rest to then come back to the upper day. If you're doing 5 days a week, we're pushing to the point of me going, I'm not always really comfortable with that, predominantly because I truly believe if you train hard enough within 1 to 4 days a week, you need more recovery and you don't need to be in the gym 5 times a week. But if your recovery is pretty high and you're progressing, then you can do 5 times a week. But if you do 5 times a week, I would probably do an upper, lower, full body, an upper and a lower. Predominantly because at least we know that with that full body session, we can then provide exercises or movement patterns that we feel like we've missed, feel like potentially throughout those other sessions, we haven't had the time and or the recovery aspects and or the volume to put into those sessions. So that full body's got to allow us to allocate potentially like a strength a day or an accessory day. That's the way my brain tends to like program it in my template, so that with my clients, for me, for instance, if I do a full body day, I'd probably do that as like core, some accessory legs and arms. They're the stuff that I don't really like doing, predominantly because I'm just like, oh, how do I allocate an hour and a half to my sessions? That's including walking, without being in the gym for 2 hours trying to get my arms in, and then a full upper day. And then when it comes to legs, it's like walking, calves, all legs. And then it's like, well, I haven't had time to train my core. And then let's look at 6 times a week. Once again, we're really pushing it. And I'll talk about the nuances of that after this. I would probably do an upper, lower, full body. What was I doing? Push, pull legs. Push, pull legs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is a lot of volume. And so let's talk about allocation of volume. So volume pretty much means how many working sets you can do throughout each session, and then what that looks like throughout the week. So let's remember that volume equals working sets, not exercises, because that's going to be relevant also to your training age. If you're new to training, your intensity inside the gym is not going to be great. So arguably your working sets, depending on your school